this risky type of escalation we're seeing from the U.S. and China. Is it possible that the two sides can look past these differences, or are we just entering into a new Cold War now with this coronavirus?
Look, certainly the U.S.-China relations have entered a more competitive phase. Arguably, it has been like that for the past couple of years. Now, in the kind of latest developments and this sort of spiral with, for instance, banning of the U.S. journalists from Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal that can't report from China anymore, has added further fuel to the fire. And obviously, the latest diplomatic spat hasn't done anything to help that. One thing to keep in mind is that a lot of these accusations that are coming from both sides are actually serving a lot of domestic purposes in the first place, to basically deflect from potential misdoings or inability to respond to the outbreak of COVID-19 in each of those countries. So it's easier to blame the other side. It obviously scores a lot of political points in the first place and deflects from some of the issues, again, within both the U.S. and Chinese leadership.
Yep, deflecting blame. It seems like they're deflecting, I guess, when it comes to President Trump, his overall response to the coronavirus outbreak. Do you see that impacting what happens in November in any way?
It's really hard, obviously, to speculate what sort of developments we are yet to see unravel from, obviously, late March to early November. But certainly Donald Trump now doesn't have that major part of his re-election bid, and that's the strength and resilience of the economy to kind of tout as his major achievement. So what we've seen now is the rhetoric shifting actually to the kind of war on the virus, to president becoming from a peacetime to a kind of almost wartime president, declaring a state of emergency, and basically just touting how healthy the economy was once upon a time before this virus hit. So it's certainly changing a lot of the calculations, and this is also why we are again seeing a ramped up nationalist rhetoric as well. The whole story around Chinese virus and so on. So these the sort of tools that have been used also in the context of 2016 campaign to rally the supporters to his side.
Gorana, U.S.-China relations have implications on the rest of the world. If the tit-for-tat continues, what kind of collateral damage are we looking at?
Well, one thing is certain. Any sort of pandemic response needs to come from joining of countries to kind of work in a concerted way, multilaterally, rather than just, doing things by themselves. And if we have seen anything, it's basically just in these early days, the kind of responses have been strictly, bringing back the state in rather than trying to work out solutions together, because obviously this is a virus that knows no nationalities or borders for that matter. So the more that we see the intensification in terms of this major power rivalry, the worse off the world really is in that sense. So if we still hold hope that we can do something, it's probably more through concerted action rather than these sort of partial or piece-by-piece measures.
However you look at it, it is a power struggle between the U.S. and China. Is anyone emerging the winner at this point?
Well, I think that given the gravity of the situation and everything that we are learning from, the pandemic, its extent and its severity, it's really hard to see who the real winners are. I mean, the only thing that we've seen so far is maybe just a glimpse of what the world could look like with a lower carbon footprint. If, this is the sort of silver lining that we might have been looking for. But certainly there's been a great human cost, both in the kind of direct impact that has resulted from the outbreak of the pandemic, but also the knock-on effects on the economy economies, this is going to hurt everyone. There won't be, winners per se in that sort of calculation.